So when we were at E3 this year, we met with Codemasters, who are a bunch of game developers out of the UK, and they showed us their game Body Count. And they're like, you guys want to do a video for it? And we're like, yeah. And we asked them, it's like, well, if we're going to do a video, we want some of the stuff from the game. So like the briefings in the beginning that I'm looking at in the errors from the game, and also the gunshot sound effects, which are awesome because when they record gunshots for games, they make them huge. So hold on. Oh, awesome. Listen to this. Yeah. Now, normally when we use gunshot sound effects, we'll take them and blend them from a variety of sources. So like gunshot sounds from our sound library, with punches or like, cracks and things like that to try and like, round out the sound. For some reason, a lot of people think that we take the gunshot sounds from games, but a lot of games take their gunshot sounds from the sound libraries, and everyone has that access to those sound libraries. So it was nice because for this one, we got to use, sound effects that they had recorded specifically for the game.
Today, as promised on Twitter, I'm going to show you guys how to do shells ejecting from a gun. There's a wide range of difficulty as far as shells ejecting goes, so today I'm going to show you guys an easy one and then like a medium one. The first step when you're going to composite any shot, as I always preach, is you got to pull up reference footage. So right now I've got pulled up this G36 instructional shooting video since Freddy's shooting a G36 in the shot.
The G36 rifle is an automatic weapon for firing semi-automatic or burst fire.
So the first shot is the shot of Freddy basically shooting the gun, and the shell's going to come out to the side. Not much like real perspective change on the shell, just basically shooting straight out. The assets that I use for shells is from Action Essentials. It's basically this shot of CG rendering of a shell rotating in a single point space. It's really easy when it's rotating in a single point to take that and animate it in After Effects by hand. And the first thing to do is find a frame where the shell lines up with the same rotation as it would coming out of the gun. Next step is to rotate it so it's coming from the same angle of the gun. As you can see there, it lines up pretty good. Scale it down so it's about the same size. Once again, we have reference right here. Fortunately, this is a see-through mag, so you can see the shell right there. The secret to getting good animation for shells is to only have 2 keyframes for position. So you want to make your first one, obviously, when it leaves the gun. And the second one, about 4 or 5 frames later, animate it so it goes flying off the screen. The moment the shell leaves the gun, it's being affected by gravity, so it needs to descend as it goes through. So its overall trajectory needs to trend lower. Once you have the shell animated in 2 frames to go off the screen, you want to add the arc that it would if it was coming out. So based on the speed it's going right now, it would come basically straight out and then drop down like we saw in our reference video. Now the beauty of only having 2 keyframes is that once it comes out, if it's going too slow, you can just drag it over 1 frame and it'll speed up. Or you can, if it's going too fast, you can drag it over a few frames and speed down. If you do more than 2 keyframes, it gets much more difficult to remap the time of it coming out. So I recommend always stick to 2 keyframes. After that, all you need to do is add some motion blur, and you should be good to go. Once you have 1 shell completed, you want to take that shell and duplicate it however many times you're having the scene, and just drag the other ones over, offset them by 3 keyframes. And take the first keyframe from each one and line it up with where the gun is now positioned. And then take the second keyframe and basically move it around a little bit so there's a little variation in how the shells are coming out, because obviously you don't want each one to follow the exact same path. When a shell comes out of the gun, every time a shell comes out, the slide is back, and so the inside of the gun, rather than having the slide visible, is dark. So basically just duplicate the footage, create a mask, and use a levels adjustment to darken the footage right there, so it looks like it's getting dark. If you want to get really fancy, you can animate it like a blur, make it go like a 2-frame thing, but I recommend just doing 1 single frame of darkness. That's what I did for these shots, and it turns out looking pretty good. Alright, time for the medium difficulty shot. Now the only difference between this one and the other one is that this time it's a profile shot, so the shells are coming out of the gun, coming out of the camera. Now the process of doing this shell is actually exactly the same as doing the other shell. 2 keyframes, animate the bezier curves. The only difference is you're doing it in 3D space. In After Effects, it's a little difficult to visualize this 3D space, so you have to be more precise and try to avoid making adjustments once you've done it. First step to doing a 3D composite in After Effects is you have to add a 3D camera to the scene. So put a camera in the scene and adjust it to be about the same focal length as the shot you have. You don't have to be perfect, just get it approximately right. If it's wide, make it kind of wide. Take your bullet shell footage and turn the 3D box on by checking the box right here. And then you want to take the position and place it just like you do the other one. The first keyframe should be lined up with where it's exiting the gun and scale it so it's appropriate. The second keyframe, first you want to animate the Z so that the shell comes out towards the camera. And you get it so it's about the right scale. And then you adjust the X and the Y to position it where it would end up. So once again, off frame and a little bit back behind the gun. Once you position those, you have it animating, so now it's moving through 3D space coming close. After you've selected these, you want to take your Bezier curves and adjust them so that the arc is appropriate. Once again, you only want to use 2 keyframes, otherwise the 3D space is going to get really difficult to handle. Imagine you have a 3D line that's going now, even though it's only represented in 2D. You have a 3D line that's moving and you have these 2 points on there. So you want to bring those points straight up to create an arc that's right. If you move them left and right, your shell is now going to move in a weird arc-like pattern. So you only want to move the Bezier curves straight up from where they already are. The best way to do these shots is to position it and then not touch it again. So place it, adjust the time like we did in the other one by sliding back and forth to make sure that it's going the right speed, and then duplicate it and vary it up a little bit by moving your second keyframe around, and then match your first keyframe to it. Once you have that, turn motion blur on and don't touch it anymore. Because the more keyframes you add and the more tweaking you do with it, if you don't fully understand what's going on, you risk screwing up the way the movement is, because it's kind of hard to visualize when it's in 3D space. All right, guys, good luck at doing shell casings. Feel free to tweet at me any links to ones you try out of the upload. I'll give you some comments on them. I recommend starting with some easier shots like this where it's close when they leave the frame. Once you've mastered these techniques, then you can start trying to add to it by showing them bounce off the ground, or actually showing them land on the ground, stuff like that. So it gets really fun, but it's pretty time consuming to do. So choose your battles wisely. All right, see you guys.